Hey, it's West Coast Wednesday. In honor of Domestic and Intimate Partner Violence Awareness Month, I would like to share my experience as a loved one of a person experiencing intimate partner violence. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner, and 1 in 7 women and 1 in 25 men have been injured by an intimate partner. Although I was aware that domestic and intimate partner violence affects many people, I didn't realize exactly how common it is, nor the depths of its impact until my loved one experienced it. I learned that my loved one was experiencing intimate partner violence from someone else. When I found out, I experienced a range of emotions and had many questions. I was shocked, fearful, and sad, wondering if I missed signs, how long it was happening, and if my loved one would be okay. I felt anger towards the perpetrator of violence, and I questioned how they could hurt my loved one and why no one was holding them accountable for their actions. I was confused about the nature of intimate partner violence, asking myself, why do people stay or leave? And if I would be able to convince my loved one to leave. Then I felt anxious about how to approach my loved one. What should I say? How do I get my loved one alone so that they can feel safely enough to talk? And how do I help my loved one while honoring their privacy and personal autonomy? I also felt helpless, realizing that I had no control. Personal emotional processing is an important first step for loved ones of people experiencing intimate or domestic partner violence. Your feelings are valid, and it's normal to have questions. Make space to process your emotions alone and with God, as well as with trusted loved ones and professionals. It's also important to consider what emotions and questions will and won't be helpful as you support your loved one. Processing outside of my loved one helped me approach them with clarity and purposefulness. I want to talk a little more about the anxiety I experienced. Most of it stemmed from worrying about how to talk to my loved one and hearing about the violence indirectly from other people, which added an additional layer of complexity. As I explored my anxiety, I realized much of it was founded in the way I learned how to handle sensitive personal or family information. Oversimplifying things, when I was growing up, trauma was either completely swept under the rug or addressed indirectly. I think much of this is learned generational attempts to keep personal family business private. So when an incident occurs, it's not to be discussed outside of the immediate family. And when it's discussed, people often talk or gossip about the incident with other people, but do not talk directly to the person who experienced the incident. This approach is isolating to the person who experienced trauma and can limit the scope of help and support they receive. I don't share this to vilify anyone because we're all trying to do our best with the tools we have. I share because reflecting on my upbringing helped me put my emotions in proper perspective so I could break away from my default and talk to my loved one. Although I felt unequipped to have the conversation, I did not allow that to stop me. Silence is not an option. Talk to your loved one. Don't let them go through it alone. Even if other people have spoken to them, talk to your loved one so they know there's support all around them. The conversation may feel difficult because you don't know what to say or you don't want to say the wrong thing, but there are ways to prepare for the conversation. I prepare by praying, asking others to pray, and seeking professional help and resources. I sought advice from my friend who is a social worker that has worked with people experiencing domestic and intimate partner violence. In addition, the National Domestic Violence Hotline website, which is thehotline.org, has resources to help start a conversation with the loved one, ways to support them, information about why people stay, and help for perpetrators of violence. They also have advocates available 24/7 via phone to chat and discuss your situation and help identify ways to assist a loved one experiencing intimate or domestic partner violence. While every situation is unique, there are some basic ways to facilitate a conversation. Start with the basics and tailor the approach for your loved one. Affirm. Reassure your loved one that they are not alone, that you care. Remind them of how loved that they are and remind them of their worth. And let them know that the abuse is not their fault. Release control. Remember that you cannot rescue them or make them leave, but you can support them. Listen. It may be difficult for them to talk about the abuse. If they would like to talk, listen attentively. If they are not ready, respect their boundaries and do not be forceful. Be non-judgmental. Respect their decisions. There are many reasons they might stay in the situation. They may also leave and return many times. Don't criticize or guilt their decisions, and be mindful about how you talk about the perpetrator of violence. Guilting your loved one and bad-mouthing the perpetrator of violence may make your loved one want to isolate more and protect their abuser. Be supportive. Remind them that help and support are available. Ask them how you can specifically support them and encourage them to talk to others that can help them further and even offer to go with them. Just start the conversation. And after you start the conversation, continue to regularly check in with your loved one. When I spoke with my loved one, I realized that the conversation was not as difficult as I expected it to be. So a lot of the anxiety that I had was anxiety that I was projecting on the situation. And when I spoke to them, I also learned that I was one of the first people to directly talk to them about the abuse, although many others were aware and were talking amongst themselves. So just talk to your loved one. Start the conversation. Even if other people are talking to them, talk to them just so that they know that there's support around them from many different angles. As you support your loved one, also continue to process your own emotions and get the support that you need. Lastly, I encourage you to pray constantly. 1 Thessalonians 5:17 instructs us to pray without ceasing. Pray for your loved one. Pray for God's covering and deliverance. Pray that God reveals ways you can support them. And pray that the perpetrator of violence receives the help they need to stop the abuse. Also ask others to pray. I prayed every time I thought about my loved one and every time I was worried or afraid for them. With God, I went from feeling helpless to hopeful. With God, I went from feeling out of control to feeling peace, knowing that God is in control. When emotions arise, and they will, I sit in the presence of God with those emotions. And I lean on Him, and He is with me. I also pray with my loved one. Prayer works. I see God's hand in covering over this situation, and I'm thankful that He is with us. As I conclude, I hope something I said has been helpful, and I pray that God be with every person and family impacted by domestic or intimate partner violence. I want to stop and just thank Alvin for highlighting Domestic and Intimate Partner Violence Awareness Month. Thank you for creating space for people to share, learn, grow, and be encouraged. Stay blessed, stay West.